Timothy was used to the unpredictable weather in Scarborough, so he wasn't surprised when, after a clear, starry night, the sky gave way to grey, impenetrable darkness. The night watch was coming to an end. The boy looked out of the window and saw a thick blanket of fog covering the streets of his hometown. He went home. His mood was not good. Many problems had accumulated lately, and just a few years ago the future seemed happy and stable. But suddenly, everything changed. His beloved father died, and his mother's grief made her give up a lot. Dad became seriously ill, left the medical practice, and passed away quietly in 40 days. And Mom immediately grew old and lost all interest in life. Father had always been a role model for Timothy, so from childhood he saw himself only as a doctor. Oliver Evans was a good general practitioner. He was appreciated by the locals not only for his professional skills, but also for his ability to cheer them up and help them survive painful conditions. Many of my father's colleagues spoke of his amazing talent, hard work, and perseverance at his farewell ceremony in the church. In fact, he took on all difficult cases, making no distinctions between people. His father had no doubt that Timothy will follow in his footsteps. With his father's support, knowledge, and experience, it was easy for Timothy to attend university. He now had an undergraduate degree and was pursuing a career in medicine. Timothy was confident that surgery was his calling. However, there was something that clouded his thoughts and prevented him from looking forward with confidence. The health of his mother, Jane Evans, deteriorated greatly over the past year. She had suffered from heart pain since childhood, but numerous examiners had revealed no serious pathology. But after her husband's death, doctors gave her a disappointing diagnosis: an acquired heart defect. Without surgery, the condition could be fatal. In recent months, Jane has suffered from shortness of breath and severe weakness. She was able to feed herself and move around the house, but she was unable to do household chores or take long walks unaccompanied. Timothy sent his mother test results to a heart center in London. Doctors there developed a preliminary program of complex treatment for his mother, offering the service of leading psychiatrists and psychotherapists. In the future, after stabilizing the emotional background and gaining the necessary weight, there was an opportunity to perform an operation that could completely rid her of the heart defect. But the man didn't have the money for such treatment. It was painful for him to see his mother, a very young woman, not even 50 years old, withering away before his eyes every day and possibly leaving this world prematurely. Timothy's sad thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a passing bus. He looked up and saw his mother's sickly face in the window of his house. His heart clenched and his temples pounded. His grief was deep, and his thoughts were filled with hopelessness. He took a deep breath, exhaled, put a smile on his face, and stepped into the darkened doorway. "Hi, Ma," he said as he entered the apartment, kicking off his shoes and gently putting his arm around the woman's shoulders. "How are you today?" He stroked her head. Jane lowered her head and answered, "I'm fine, son. Don't worry about it. Have you had something to eat?" "Yeah, thank you for the delicious soup." She stroked his arm. Timothy looked in the refrigerator and realized she hadn't eaten. "I'm going to bed." He kissed her head. "I'm tired. We're on all night. Many patients come in. An everyday wound, a suspected appendix, a pinched hernia. The night flew by. We formalized, arranged the ward, prepared for examination and emergency surgery. Soon you'll be a famous doctor. His mother patted him on the shoulder. Your father will be happy for you. I hope so, Timothy said, smiling broadly. Well, it's time for bed. He returned to the hall, took off his coat, and went to his room. Outside the window, the flowers were in full bloom. Without understanding, the boy collapsed on the bed and fell asleep immediately. At the hospital where Timothy interned, he made friends with a good woman, Dr. Laura Brown, a beautiful and stern brunette, 45 years old. She was already an established doctor at the hospital and took a liking to Timothy. They became friends and he was very open with her. Laura knew of his problems with his mother. One day, she invited him into her office for a serious talk. Tim, I want to tell you about a suggestion. Yesterday, I suddenly realized that maybe it's destiny. I know a very wealthy woman. He owns a number of industrial enterprises in the area and is fabulously wealthy. One day he got into an unpleasant financial situation and he was very worried. So he retired and sold the business. But his health deteriorated a lot. As a specialist, you know that stress is a provoking factor in the development of serious diseases. So his stress led to stroke. And despite the fact that his financial resources are practically unlimited, the treatment and subsequent rehabilitation did not bring the desired result. All hopes of regaining his lost function collapsed, and now David is blind and requires constant care. His language and intelligence remain intact. He's a very proud and independent person who doesn't like to ask for help and will not accept it from anyone. I've tried to find a qualified caregiver for him, but he is categorically against it. It is not in his character to show weakness, so he sees only a man as his helper. If you agree to live with him permanently and take care of him, the salary will be quite high. I've calculated that within 6 months, you'll be able to save up for your mother's treatment. I'm sure you will get along and he will like you. David is a difficult man with a complicated destiny, but he is very generous and attentive to his loved ones. He has been paralyzed for several years, and unfortunately, the muscle atrophy is progressing and his heart is weakening. At any moment, as you can see, his life could be cut short. Yet he is strong in spirit, independent, and perceptive. David lives alone in his mansion. There is a caretaker, a housekeeper, maids, gardeners, security guards, but there is no family in his life. I don't know the details, so I will tell you briefly. When he was young and strong, he lost his wife and son in a car accident and survived, although he suffered a severe head injury. According to my father, David vowed never to marry or have children again. Once, when I was a kid, we went to visit him, and I asked him why he didn't even have dogs and cats in his huge house. He told me that animals had short lives and died quickly, and he didn't want to lose anyone or anything in his life. Laura finished her story and asked with slightly raised eyebrows, "Well, what do you think of this suggestion?" Timothy looked confused and surprised. I don't know. I have to think about it very seriously. It's a lot of responsibility. There is no doubt that I will be able to provide David with all the necessary medical service. But will I be able to find a common language with a stranger? What about my mother? I can't leave her alone. I agree with you. It's wise to take Mom with us. I will talk to David about the possibility of her staying with him. It's a big house, so it won't be a problem if someone came to stay. It's hard to take care of 2 sick people at the same time, But on the plus side, you don't have to worry about cooking, cleaning, living. There may be no other way to make money. Thank you, Laura, for being a part of my destiny. I'll think about it and give you an answer tomorrow morning. Well, Tim, think about it. It's going to change your life dramatically. You're going to have to combine being on call with being nurse. When Timothy came home, his mother asked him, "Is something wrong, son? You look so worried." "You know, Mom, an opportunity came up to earn money for our surgery." And he told Jane everything Laura had told him. "Tim, this is going to take a tremendous physical and mental effort, but the doctor is right. It's probably worth the risk. Think about it. There is still time." Jane ruffled her son's hair and went into her room, and he tossed and returned in bed all night, thinking about the unusual proposal. And in the morning, with his mother's life on the line, he made a positive decision. He called Laura and told her that he had agreed. She was very happy and explained to him that as soon as he had settled all the formalities with David, she would notify him and he could move into his house. They arrived at David's home a few days later. The mansion itself and the grounds surrounding it were breathtaking. The house was like a Victorian castle, with many large and small pointed turrets, balconies, and a large terrace with columns. There was a promenade on the roof. The building had 3 floors. On the first floor, there was a hall decorated in classical style with a fireplace and large sofas facing each other. Here were also living room, the boiler room, and the bedroom for the staff. The kitchen and dining room took up most of the second floor, and there were walk-in closets and guest rooms. David's bedroom, library, and the office were on the 3rd floor. The housekeeper, a tall blonde woman named Grace, introduced the guests to the house. She was a middle-aged woman, neat and outgoing. She offered Timothy and his mother a tour of the rooms. They gladly accepted. Jane's bedroom window overlooked the garden, and the Tim's room had a mesmerizing view of the ocean. He opened the window and began unpacking his things to the sound of the surf. Later, they both looked into his mother's room. From what he saw, Jane and the energetic housekeeper had found common ground. They were arranging the family pictures on the wooden dresser and having such an exciting conversation that they didn't even notice Timothy watching them from behind the outer door. He was called by one of the maids and invited up to the master's room. Together with her, the guy in the elevator had got to the 3rd floor. David's bedroom was huge. In the middle of the room was a large oak bed, with nightstand on either side. Timothy saw David. The old man's face was dry and bleeding, but his gaze was steady and alert. He motioned to the young man with his hand, pointing to the edge of the bed. As he sat down, the man spoke in a weak, hoarse voice. "It's good to see you, Timothy. Are you all settled in?" "Yes, thank you. I'm fine. And we have gotten to know the house a bit. It's very comfortable and cozy." The old man smiled. "Yes, I've put a lot into it, and I think I made all my childhood fantasies come true. Well, get on with your duties." He nodded to the beside table next to him, where the medicines were arranged. Next to it was a prescription form. Timothy studied it carefully. It was necessary to make injections. The young man prepared everything necessary after washing his hands in the bathroom. After examining the old man's body, he realized that this muscular system was severely weakened, so he had to find a suitable place for the injections. David thanked the man and soon fell asleep. In the evening, Timothy and his mother went up on the roof, and an amazing panorama opened before their eyes. A crimson sunset covered David's estate, and beyond it, the rippling sea. The 2 months at David's estate flew by. Although caring for a bedridden patient was hard work, Timothy found himself thinking they had the house to themselves. Jane liked the quiet atmosphere. Besides, they were free of all the domestic problems, so they could socialize more and take walks together. Seeing how the once mighty and strong man endured his current situation, the young man sincerely respected David, and he came to love the boy. He often called him to his house late at night, and they had a heart-to-heart talk. David told the boy about his homeless childhood, how his mother, killed in divorce, lost her mind and ended up in a home for the mentally ill. And from that moment on, his independent life began in an orphanage. There, one of the teachers saw great potential in David and helped him prepare for university. After graduating, David worked his way up from a simple worker to the director of a factory. With his work experience and his financial acumen, he was able to buy out the factory and later open subsidiaries. David was a large man, and it was difficult to move on an old man, but Timothy did it professionally. He took on the role of a caregiver, forgetting for a while that he will soon become a real doctor. Every day, the boy shaved and washed the old man, changed his clothes, and made his bed. Twice a week, he put him on a stretcher, wrapped him in a blanket, and took him for a walk on the roof of the house. And on Sundays, his mother and David took him for a 100-meter walk to a beach. Both patients started quickly, but they had time to gain impressions, and the days became more pleasant and eventful for them. The attendant physician visited David once a month, welcomed Timothy's appearance, and noted each time that all the procedures were performed to the proper standard. In fact, the old man had few bed sores and was more cheerful and upbeat. The doctor also examined Jane Evans. Timothy paid him handsomely for these services. On his last visit, he had recommended that the boy send her for an operation immediately, but he had not yet saved enough money. In another evening conversation, he told David about his problems. The old man furrowed his brow and told him to tell his housekeeper to come by in the morning to talk. The next day, Grace solemnly handed Timothy a check for the amount needed to treat his mother. The young man was touched and genuinely surprised. The housekeeper covered his hand with hers. "The master has seen fit. Take it. It is incapable to argue with him on such matters. It is sacred things to heal the mother," she added, and left with dignity. Timothy was confused but accepted the help, and a week later Jane went to London for treatment. The boy was very worried about his mother. Jane's stay in the fresh air, walks on the sea beaches, did the woman good. She gained the necessary weight and became more stronger. Surgical treatment could be applied immediately, and although the famous heart surgeon assured him that such operation had been performed in his clinic for a long time and that the prognosis was very favorable, he could not find a place. A week was spent on the examinations, and according to the results, the day of the operation was set. The night before, after a sleepless night, Timothy went to David's apartment early in the morning. The old man was still asleep, and the young man's arrival did not wake him up. Timothy went to the window of the room. It was April. The sea played with all shades of gray, shrouded in a foggy mist. Timothy was brought out of his deep reverie by David's soft voice. "Stop worrying, Tim," he said. "You're so important to each other. For anything irreparable to happen. Timothy turned and walked over to the bed. David struggled to continue. You have tried so hard. You wanted this so much. And now the most important step is left. I think God will help you. The medicine in the capital is famous for its quality, and the doctors there are disciplined and responsible. The old man lifted his trembling hand from the bed and shook his fist. I think your mother will recover. You really need her, and she needs you. You are people with a difficult destiny. You must be lucky. There is a saying that God is strong when man is weak. I think that's true. David turned the window and asked, Tim, I want to go up on the roof to see the sky and feel the wind on my face. When they went up, they found that the sea had become very turbulent, with high waves crashing on the shore and the trees groaning in the wind that was swallowing them. The weather worried them both, and they returned to the house. The boy took David into bed and returned to his room. Soon, his cell phone rang, and the interpreter from the London clinic told him that his mother's surgery had been routine, with no complications, and that the prognosis for her recovery was good. As she sleeps, she's recovering from the anesthesia, and when she comes to, she will be able to call her soon. The tension that had haunted the boy for a day was finally released. Timothy could not stay at home and went for a walk. It was already dark, with only the garden lights illuminating the area. The young man walked through the gate. In a few minutes, was on a beach. The wind had died down, and there was silence, broken only by the cries of seagulls. As the minutes passed, hope grew in Timothy's soul. His heart grew light and calm. His mind returned to David's stories. The old man had become dear to him, reminding him of his dead father with his wisdom and calmness. After getting enough fresh air, Timothy returned to the house and looked on David before he went to bed. The old man lifted his head from the pillow. What is this? Did you get a call from London? Yeah, the operation was a success. Mom is still sleeping, probably won't call until tomorrow morning. The doctor says everything will be fine. That's wonderful. David smiles. That's wonderful, my darling. The man's eyes became moist. The next day, Jean called her son to tell him she was doing well. The doctor said she will need to be monitored for 2 or 3 weeks. The woman's voice was cheerful and satisfied, with a sense of recovery in it. Timothy happily went to work at the hospital, but when he returned, sad news awaited him. Grace told him that David had died. The boy was shocked and upset. He grieved deeply for the old man who was occupied on his fine journey by himself, Laura Brown, and the faithful housekeeper. The vast garden, David's favorite, bade farewell to its master with the intoxicating sound of flowering trees. For a long time, the strangeness of all that had happened to Timothy that made him unable to come to his senses. The house seemed empty and gloomy to him, so he tended to spend the morning days walking by the sea. After a while, the man learned that the old man had left him all his possessions. He was amazed by this act and by the size of the inheritance. The man decided to realize his dream, to open his own private clinic. At the end of the May, he brought his mother from the clinic in London. He was pleased to see that she was much younger and happier. He hugged her and said, Mom, it's so good to see you again, healthy and strong. We have a new home now, David's home. Yes, Tim, we must remember him and tend to his grave. He was a bright man, Without him, our lives wouldn't be so joyful. You're right, Mom. I will always remember this man. Yes.